Hi, my name is Tara Katchaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today, I have as my special guest Marc Alexander, who's the co-founder and CEO of Light Rays and the founder at Light Tuition. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tara. It's an honor and pleasure to be here to share our story, our journey, and talk a little bit more about entrepreneurship.
Absolutely, Marc. And you've got two companies going on here, so we have plenty to talk about. Um,
Absolutely.
before we dive into your companies, Light Rays and Light Tuition, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? And, we'll go a little bit back and forth on that because I want to bring us up to today where you are.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in the beautiful city of Pontiac, Michigan. Went to Pontiac Central. I was the homecoming chief for 2003. And then I had this very ambitious goal after a gentleman stopped by Central and said, you can make money while you go to school. And that's where I learned about Kettler University. I went there. I started off as a mechanical engineer major. Started my first ever company called Youth of Tomorrow back then, which was an amazing nonprofit while in school. But what happened that got me towards this new entrepreneur journey, my last year of college, I had over $130,000 in student loan debt.
Oh
My
my
mom, who
goodness.
was going through cancer at the time, had no way of helping co-sign for any loans. And on March 26th of 2009, I received an anonymous check for $16,000 to pay for my last year of college with the one request that I paid that gift for. And Tara, that was a game-changing moment for me that I identified that even in the most darkest moments, greatness can happen. And that's how I was able to graduate, and the rest has become history to this day.
Oh my goodness gracious. Wow. That is quite the story. Is Kettering the one where you work for a while, you work in industry and then you go to school, you kind of flip back and forth? Is that what?
Yeah, so they have
Yeah.
you work 3 months, then you go to school for 3 months. They have
Yeah.
both A section and B section as well for students.
And you were mechanical engineering and
Yes, I
working in that.
started as mechanical engineering, and
Mhm.
then shout out to Professor Ko, who was there at the time. I switched to business during the last about year and a half because she made a very profound statement. She said, "Marc, engineering is going to open up a lot of doors, but are they doors that you want to walk through?" And that just took me aback. I'm a very social person. I love engaging with folks, but I have a very good discipline from engineering, which has been invaluable for us. But business has been my bread and butter since then. So thank you, Professor Ko, for that wisdom back then so many years ago.
Wow, that's interesting. So you did not you didn't graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering?
I had a concentration in mechanical engineering with a
Concentration.
focus. Yes.
Okay. Wow. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So, speaking of that anonymous donor that came through and helped you get through that last year of your education, did you ever find out who it was?
No. And here's the crazy thing about that, Tara. I had the opportunity because we had different shows and networks reach out and say, wow, this is a great story. We want to help you find the anonymous donor. And the only reason I said no to these shows was because it kept me humble throughout my whole life. I made a promise that whenever and if I ever meet that person, I would greet them with a smile, a thank you, and a handshake. And what that's not has forced me to do as a young person, all the way up into my adult years, is I do that same greet to everybody because it would um, it would devastate me if the first time they met me in person, I didn't greet them with a smile and thank you. So it keeps me humble, it keeps me grounded. It reminds me that everybody I walk by each and every single day can be that anonymous donor. So I still keep it close to the chest. I don't know who it is, but one day, if it's the Father's will, I would definitely meet them in person.
You may have met that person, and
Absolutely.
already you may have actually met that
I
person.
might be on the show with the person right now.
Well, back in 2003, I don't think that would have been me, but but I could have been. But
Amen.
that is a fascinating story. And what's interesting also is let's talk little bit about the organization you started while you were in school, um, your first nonprofit. What did that teach you that has brought you to this day? Because
Oh,
and
that first one.
we haven't even talked about the two companies that you're actually here to talk about, but uh,
Absolutely. So that first nonprofit was called Youth of Tomorrow.
mhm.
And what we provided was innovative educational programs for youth. So we provided an engineering program called Engineers of Tomorrow, where students as young as middle school had access to a Unigraphics, CAD, SolidWorks program. They built robots, dealt with
Oh,
solar power machines, all the way up to the point where a very enjoyable program we had was our Special Security Agency. So our goal was to expose youth, especially in those underserved communities, to amazing career opportunities. And what it really taught me is you can never start too soon investing in the future of our youth. As a nonprofit, I realized, yes, small businesses, we may be the backbone of the economy, but nonprofits are the backbone of communities. There's so many amazing people we met on that journey that are still grateful to this day. We have a young man who went on to join the Army. He says because of the discipline and the opportunity to see greater things in life during Youth of Tomorrow, that paid off. So it reminded me it's never too soon to invest in our young people. So let's start today.
Role models are extremely important,
Yeah,
and it's during our young years that a lot of things are getting cemented into our neural circuitry,
I agree.
and that's why we have to work with children as very young to get
Yes,
them for a strong start.
I
That's
agree.
a great story
Absolutely.
too. It's
Well,
great to
thank
hear about
you.
that success. That's fantastic. Yeah, and it's so interesting because you can see your life kind of spiraling, and you've revisited nonprofit and the model of helping others. You keep
Yes,
coming back to it. It's the DNA helix as you go
that's
up.
right.
You keep seeing the same things, but it's at a different level and bringing it to
Absolutely.
a new group of people. That's so fascinating. I love to look at patterns in people's lives. It's just amazing what you can see when you
Well,
start
thank you.
deconstructing that. So, in between you leaving college and starting these two companies, Light Raise and Light Tuition, which we're going to dive into even in more detail, what led you from there to where you are today? How did you get to
Yes.
starting both of these companies?
So I went into retail, and you already know retail being very people focused. You learned a lot about operating large retail stores. So I've been able to lead stores who did 25 to $36 million of revenue a year. Teams that reported to me up to about 226 at one of my largest stores. But it taught me a lot about running the business. So entrepreneurs out there, if you have a full time job, look at it as a way to be an entrepreneur or entrepreneur within the business. I learned from these amazing companies how to properly do payroll, how to look at our forecasting, how to put together very solid budgets, and then most importantly, have a system in place. So I'm very thankful for that work experience that I had during corporate America. And I even share Sundays, we do, of course, review and processing for the week. Mondays and Thursday, operational days for us here at Light Raise and Light Tuition. Tuesday and Fridays are tech days, with Wednesdays and Mondays been a focus on marketing and sales. But having that system ingrained in me during my corporate America days has been invaluable. So entrepreneurs, if you're working, learn something at the place you work. And if they're a big multi-billion dollar corporation or a Fortune 100 company, figure out how they got there and see what you can actually apply into your own system. So being an entrepreneur was amazing for me becoming an entrepreneur now that I'm running Light Raise and Light Tuition.
Fun fact here, Mark, you'll never believe this, but the person who coined the term intrapreneur, Gifford Pinchot,
Mm,
um, who started Bainbridge Institute, very well known in consulting circles. He actually was a guest on this program several years ago. He was in town. I got a hold of him. He did two shows with us, and
wow.
it was just fantastic. He was actually here for something else, but
Oh, that's beautiful.
coined the word intrapreneur. Um, yeah, and what's so important, I think, about even working in the retail space is you need to be at the people level to understand people. You cannot be
Yes,
hiding in an office to really understand the marketing and how people's minds work, psychology of how people buy and make decisions. It's really done by being in the trenches with people.
I completely
And
agree.
retail is everybody should work it,
I completely
even
agree.
for a few months, just to understand people at a different level. So we're going to dive now into the two companies that we're going to talk about, focus on for the rest of our time here together. Let's focus on the first one. Tell us a little bit about it. You are the founder of Light Tuition. What
Yes.
does that company do, and why did you start it?
So that was my promise to pay it forward, of course, with that anonymous donation I got. And I still keep that letter hung above the desk as a reminder behind it. But Light Tuition was and is still to date the only platform that allows students to raise money for tuition that's sent directly to their school without the burden of debt. The thing people don't realize when it comes to education, there's more than just tuition costs. This fund, which is has no limits on it, it can be used for books, room and board, meals, because education encompasses so much more when it comes to the cost of it. And the unique thing, of course, for the supporters that help the students around the world, if the student is enrolled in school at the close of their campaign, all that money is refunded. So what we wanted to do is make sure we give our supporters a peace of mind that every dollar they send is going towards our students' schooling costs and not towards shoes, video games, or a cool sound system. But that's where we realized that everyone who wants to seek higher education needs to have some type of support or access. They're not looking for a hand out, but instead a hand up. And that's what's
So
key for us.
the funds are actually funneled to the school directly, and they're put
Yeah.
kind of in an escrow kind of thing?
So actually, it's sent directly to the school. So, for instance,
Okay.
we have a good partnership with about 900 schools around the country. So we
Oh,
work with their department. The students fill out for us what is called an enrollment
uh-huh.
verification form. So we just get their student ID and the
Mhm.
address, and our team works with the school to make sure the students enrolled, make sure the money has been received, and that's where the student is the recipient, but the school is actually the one receiving the funds at the
I
end of the
see.
day.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a great way of doing it. Wow.
Absolutely,
That's super. And so if it doesn't if they don't meet they have the student sets the goal for what they wanna earn, right? For
yes,
make with the campaign. And
correct,
so it's like a Kickstarter for your tuition. And if
yes.
it doesn't fund, then the stuff is returned to the person who made the donation. That's fantastic. What an interesting system.
Well, thank you. And that was my way of paying it forward because when I received that anonymous donation over 15 years ago, I had so many students reaching out to me and say, Mark, how did you do it? And I didn't have an accurate answer other than I made sure people knew about my story. So thank you to the Flint
Mhm.
Journal back then who featured our story that got us the exposure. And that's where we realized we can now become the hub for educational support for students. People can go to lighttuition.com, find the students, support them. But now we give them a platform where they're not arguing and fighting against other amazing causes out here. Instead, every student is looking for support, and every supporter coming to our platform is looking for great students.
What is the criteria for a student to join Light Tuition? How does that work? Can you walk us through that? Pro-
Absolutely. So I think the cool thing about it is it's absolutely free to our students. So you can be K through 12 because we started off during my journey focused strategically on collegiate students. But what we realized during the pandemic is there were so many students, whether you're in trade school, you're going to get your
Private school?
certification, exactly, even private school. And then K through 12 private school is just as expensive, if
Oh my
not
god,
more, as
it's
college. So we
massively
opened it up.
expensive. Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So
I
now all the students have to do is be enrolled at an accredited school, and that's the big criteria at the end of the day. So if they're raising $1,000 all the way up to 50,000, again, all that money goes directly to the school and not the student to make sure that money is actually reaching that student's tuition.
and can you tell us a little bit more about so once they enroll on the platform, they have to craft a story about what they're studying. What do they do? What's the story all about?
Yeah, so the power behind the story in itself is the students have to have some skin in the game. I had a vision long time ago. I was like, I want to create a free school. And a good advisor said, if you create something free, sometimes the value is lost in it. So the students have to create their story. They have to share their progress and updates. So even on the platform, they can send updates on how they're doing currently in school. They can send thank you messages, but they realize the importance of maintaining these relationships. And before I leave that out, that moment, thank you. Students, supporters, donors, anyone, do not forget the power of thank you. That level of gratitude can go a long way. We've seen some students who've been able to raise a significant amount and then come back and raise another significant amount of money for their tuition the following year, for the next year. But it's simply because they said thank you and the donors appreciated it. They kept them in the loop. They shared updates. They shared progress reports online on our platform. And donors say, you know what, this is someone I want to invest in because I see greatness inside of them.
That's really cool. I love that. So when you're on the donor side, so the students they can share updates, they can reach out, they can say thank you, and people can see what they're doing. On the donor side, so you donate anonymously and also by name,
Absolutely. And that was one of the key things with my anonymous donor. I know they
right?
wanted to keep their name secret because at the end of the day, if everybody found out who was it that gave 16,000, they would have got flooded with students
Right.
everywhere. So a lot of times people aren't looking for recognition. They're just looking to do something kind without the publicity, but instead just knowing that they're helping
They're
someone
making
else.
it about you, not them. There's a
Absolutely.
big difference when people donate with their name versus anonymous. Like, there's a huge
Absolutely.
difference in what happens.
I completely agree. So yeah, we want to make sure we protect our donors. The good thing is they can track any and every campaign they've given to. So if
Oh,
they want to
nice.
say, you know what, I want to do a look back on this year, what campaigns that I support and how are those students doing? We definitely give them the access and ability to do so.
I don't know if you can speak to this part, but, is there a tax positive tax consequence to making these? Do these count as special kinds of donations?
No, and that's the beauty behind it. Since we're a for-profit company and the
Oh,
money is
for
sent
profit.
directly to the school,
Okay.
when we send out these checks, it's written out to the school in care of the students. So that's where even with my anonymous donor, we got that business insight on how can we protect the students and their families at the end of the day without getting some type of adverse
Okay, so
action
it
towards
doesn't
any one of them.
create a tax consequence. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I see. All right. And I love the fact that you just kind of do it directly to the school, so people aren't thinking, like you said, like the the student isn't like using it for something that is other than
Absolutely.
school related. But I love the fact that they don't even have to mess with the money. It can just be all handled without the student all getting involved in all the details and paperwork and all that kind of thing. So
Correct.
yeah, I love that idea.
Well, thank you.
So can you speak to, eh, you know, we've got a lot of stuff going on with technology and things like that. How have you used technology to further this cause for light tuition, um, further it, or to upgrade or change or modify your platform? How are you using technology to make this all work?
Absolutely. So I'll share this first for all of our amazing tech entrepreneurs out there throughout the great state of Michigan. Leverage technology, but make sure you have a level of internal discipline you can still operate. I know there's a lot right now with AI, which is great. It helps you scale, whether it's internally, customer engagement. But you have to realize if the power ever go out or the lights go out, it is still up to you at the end of the day to know how to lead, grow, and
Yeah.
impact the company. So leverage the technology. Don't lean on it because if it ever fails, it's going to hurt your business at the end of the day. Now, with that said, technology has been invaluable for us. So we have a great, amazing CTO who, in my mind, is probably one of the most intelligent CTOs in the world, but I could be biased on that. We leverage a lot of AI internally so that way we can look at different pain points for students. We can look at what's the best area to promote and share their story with, and what's going to get the biggest return for that individual when it comes to their campaign. So AI has been instrumental internally for us to scale where now where our small software development team and our marketing team, they can get a lot more done in a small amount of time, especially if you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur out there. Leverage these tools, but at the end of the day, still make sure you read the fine print. Our goal is we always would like to wish and protect the students' data and information. Make sure you know what data is being shared on these platforms, what data you still own. So read the terms and agreements. But technology has been invaluable for us for our startup at Light Tuition.
Yeah, and I know you have to watch it because you're dealing with people who are youth and, they're not adults necessarily in all cases,
Absolutely.
and you have to be very careful, I know, in terms of that, to protect. Now you have another company as well, and we'll talk a little bit about this one. This one is called Light Rays, and you are a co-founder with a partner on that, and you are also the CEO of Light Rays. Tell us about that company and what you do specifically.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that spiral of how things come back to full circle. Because even as I talked about Youth of Tomorrow, starting a nonprofit, my goal was always to get back to how can we help more nonprofits. So just a little bit back my journey, we grew up in very severe poverty. So we relied on nonprofits to help us, whether it was with expenses, food, clothing, and those nonprofits got us through some of the most challenging time. So this was our way of paying it forward. At Light Tuition, during our earlier years, we had helped raise over about $1.3 million for students. I remember a nonprofit person came up and said, wow, how did you guys raise that much money with such a small team? And we have departments and we're struggling to fundraise. And it's like, well, can we use your software? And that was a big aha moment for us. Light Tuition was a B2C, is a B2C business. But what if we white labeled this fundraising software we built and create a B2B model where at an affordable cost, nonprofits can now have access to fundraising solutions, tech team, marketing team, and support to help them scale. And that's when we gave birth to Light Rays. So Light Raise allows any nonprofit, whether you're large or small, or even if you're a great individual with an idea that's bootstrapping,
Hmm.
we provide you with the software to fundraise, a tech support person. So if you're not very good with tech or have no tech experience, we got the support in-house, as well as a marketing representative. So that way you can take your vision, your purpose, and your mission and scale it with our software and the team that we provide. So our goal, of course, is to make sure everyone who has the passion to help the communities has the support they need to scale and grow.
And what's some of the feedback that you've received from some of the organizations that are using your particular white labeled software?
So I'll give a good shout out to a good friend of ours, Craig Nash from It's a Grand Life. If you haven't heard their nonprofit, definitely check them out. We partnered with them last year and we had received some amazing, overwhelming support. So it's a Grand Life focused on grand families who need the help and support. And we helped them put in place their platform, which they have up to date. I want to say 4 months, they raised over $60,000, which is amazing.
That's
Helped
fantastic.
over 200 grand families throughout the state of Michigan, but the peace of mind they receive with not having to worry about the tech, having our team set them up with simply sending in a ticket or support, they said, thank you. We can focus on our mission, our impact, while we have an amazing team and support like Ray's to focus on the tech and software for us.
Yeah, I love this idea of um, how you've taken what you've done in one company and then you've done a tech transfer and you've created it into something else that can serve another purpose to a whole nother market. I like that because it's kind of reusable code. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would share to even with entrepreneurs out there, don't be afraid to get feedback because you hear this word pivot all the time. And when I had that moment where we had to pivot to be a B2B business, it just made sense. So we thank you to everyone who's given us feedback over the years. Thank you
Yeah.
to those who are still giving us feedback and advice because it positioned us where we are today and how we've been able to scale. So I appreciate everyone for that.
Yeah. So, as you've grown these companies, you've grown as an entrepreneur yourself. Can you speak to two or three things about yourself that where you've really seen significant growth um, because of the work that you have done?
Yes,
What's
I would
changed for
share
you?
the first one, and I will put this challenge out to all the entrepreneurs out there is I had a fear of my business outgrowing my business acumen. So I've grown a lot from a intellectual standpoint. I do a lot of reading, listen to a lot of people, whether it's on podcasts or videos. But I've learned to absorb and become a sponge, a life learner of information. So that growth has been amazing for me. I would say from a family standpoint, I never do any speech or interview while talking about my amazing wife. Entrepreneurs, be open with your spouse. You're going to have some great days, you're going to have some dark days, but it's going to be that amazing partner that you have in life that's going to pick you up when you need support. We have to show up on stage, on camera, with a smile and energy and excitement, but it's our loved ones that see the challenging days, the draining. So be open with them. Tell them how your day is going, but at the end of the day, support them, give them love, because my wife has been the biggest secret weapon I've had my success. And the
I,
last thing I'll share, Tara, is all work works, even when you don't think it's working. If I did not go through that struggle back in 2009 of not having no clue of how I was going to graduate college, that became the mustard seed for the start of Light Tuition, which then led to Light Raise and other companies we have in the pipeline. So all work works. If you feel down and out, it's for a reason. Just do not give up. Those would be the top three things that come to mind.
Excellent. I think those are really, really wonderful things. And yeah, the people you have in your life are either attractors or detractors from what you're
Yeah,
doing. And, you know, obviously you've been surrounding yourself with the right people and it does pay off. We have to find our right people,
I agree.
that's part of life is, sorting out the people and finding the environments where you can grow. You got to be potted in the right with enough
Absolutely.
sunlight and air and all those things. Speaking more along the lines of these businesses, where do you see the next iteration of both of these businesses? Can you speak to that real quickly?
Yes, absolutely. So I know for Light Tuition, our vision and big goal is we are going to become the hub for education. Think about this, Tar. When a family tells their child, okay, I want to go to college, and they say, where do I start? They might say, go Google information or look it up online. Over the next 5 years, the first words that's going to come out of anybody's mouth is go to Light Tuition. So we are going to be ground zero for education, whether it's K through 12, trade school, higher education. That's the big vision for Light Tuition. With Light Raise, we're looking to be just like that anonymous donor, the people behind the scenes, making sure nonprofit have all the resources put in place. I know we have a great partnership with a financial institution here in Michigan where we're building a payment gateway to make it easier to give around the world than it has been in times past, because we realize as we research finances and giving when it comes to finance is very fragmented. So all the research and feedback and data we collected from our amazing partners allowed us to create a payment gateway. So we are going to be just like Light Tuition with education. We are going to be ground zero for nonprofits all around the world.
I love that. I love that you have that next step laid out because you were doing this way back when you were younger with your
Yes.
first nonprofit in college. You were
Yes.
laying out the steps. You're laying out the
Amen.
steps. You will make this happen. Absolutely. I have
Well, thank you.
100% confidence.
Oh, I love that. Especially hearing that on Michigan's Entrepreneur TV.
Yeah,
That's a tough case right
seriously.
there.
Now, I love that, and I love that you have 2 things going on. You just don't have all your eggs in one basket. You've got multiple things. You've got an expansion, you have a horizon, you have the next steps, even if you don't know, and the lamp is in front of you and showing you just the next couple steps, whatever
Well, thank you, my friend.
it's just all, yep, it's all happening there. So
That means a lot.
when you, if you could describe like one word to describe this journey that you've been on, if you look at the arc of, back when you were in college to today, is there a word that might describe this arc of success for you? With the in-betweens, I mean, we know like life doesn't just go one direction, but it's got ups and downs. But what's the word for you? The word or the phrase or something that's important that comes to mind?
I would say if I had to choose one word, it would be courageous. When you look at that word courageous, and my faith has been very strong for me, that word says you have to be both physically and mentally strong. And even as you look the word up, it says display strength at times. It can be challenging. If entrepreneurship was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I've seen a lot of great people have amazing ideas and then realize it takes to pick yourself up to be the biggest cheerleader in the room, because some days can be dark, even if you're in a room full of people. So it takes courage to believe in yourself. It takes courage to step out on faith and launch an idea. And it takes courage to be bold enough to change the world. So that would be the word I would say, courageous is that word for me.
All right. I love that.
Thank you.
I absolutely love that. I have one. I know we've come to the end of our time. It's gone by so quickly. I've
Yes.
loved getting to learn about both of your companies, Light Tuition and Light Raise. I'd like to ask you one final question, and that would be, what's your advice to entrepreneurs given your journey?
I would say the best advice is to invest and bet on yourself. I know a lot of times we see the highlights on social media, we see the TV shows of raising millions of dollars. The best thing you can do is raise your awareness, raise your self confidence. But at the end of the day, raise your customers. Don't worry always about pitching to get the next investment, pitching to get the next grant. How about pitch yourself to get your next customer? You started this business not because you knew you was going to land a big capital investment. You started because you believe in yourself. So don't start believing on the journey. Keep going and then leverage your network. I'm here, Tara's here, as well as the rest of the Michigan ecosystem. Lean on people. Let them know you need help, because trust me, people are willing to help you if you just tell them you need it.
All right, Mark Alexander, well said. Have loved having you as a guest today to talk about both your companies, Light Tuition and Light Raise. I want to thank you again for being a guest on the program today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tara, for having me here. It's an honor and pleasure.
Absolutely. If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at MichiganEntrepreneurTV.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.